Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart of the Homily podcast, coming to you from St. Augustine Catholic Parish and Student Center. I'm one of your hosts, Michelle Lopez.
And I'm Father Vigoa.
And we are so delighted to have you with us today. We are revisiting the Sunday's Gospel and Homily, diving deeper into its message and how we can take it from the pews into our daily life. And we really hope the Heart of the Homily podcast helps to transform you and us to really shape the way we pray, live, love, and live this week. So, Father, maybe share with us a little bit about what the gospel is from this past Sunday.
Yeah, so the gospel for this Sunday was from Luke. It's taken from 14:25 through 33. And I really, this week, I just concentrated on the first part of the gospel. So I'll just read that a little bit because I think it's good to have the context. Maybe you didn't go to Mass or you just need a little bit of a reminder again. But great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. And I have to say, every time that gospel comes out, people always have issue with it. Like, let's say, and once I didn't cover that gospel, and I remember someone at the door was really upset, saying, how could Jesus say this, that I have to hate my mother and my father? But we'll get into that.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Right.
Awesome. Well, yes, revisiting your homily yesterday, one of the things I thought was so striking is how you started with an observation that every religion has a symbol, and that for the Christians, ours is the cross. It's not a crown, it's not a throne, but it's a cross. So we'd love to know, like, why do you think that visible sign matters so much to us as followers of Jesus?
Yeah, and I think it's what you're saying is what I was thinking as well when I started writing the homily is every faith has that symbol that, yeah, that's what connects me to it, whether it's the Torah scrolls or the boot. One of the things that's interesting is when I was a seminarian, we used to do like these field trips where we would go out and do things. And I don't know if you know, but in Coral Gables, they have this Hare Krishna temple. Have you ever been inside?
No, I haven't.
It's a really cool, large piece of property, but it's open and you can just go in. And we went in at night. We didn't know it was a Hare Krishna. We didn't know what it was. It was very dark. There was candles everywhere. So we walked in and we're just talking normal. And someone came up to us and said, shh, be careful, be quiet. Harry's sleeping. And we said, who's Harry? They said, Hare Krishna. I was like, oh. And so we walked up towards the front. There he was. He was sleeping.
Oh, my goodness.
But every religion has that main point that reminds the faithful, this is who we are, right? And so that was the point I was trying to draw is, do we as Christians really understand who we are in relationship to our discipleship, what Jesus is talking about? Unless you pick up your cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. It's strong. Like, how do I understand that in the context of my life? One of the things that, as director for the Office of Worship here in the Archdiocese, the Archbishop has been trying for a while now that when parishes are renovating their sanctuary space, let's take down the risen Christ and let's put back up the crucified Christ, right? Because like St. Paul writes in his letter, I proclaim Christ, the crucified Christ, but it is through the cross that we can then find resurrection. A lot of people want to skip that. They don't want the cross. And they think that, oh, but I love Jesus. I go to Mass, and why is this happening to me? Or why do I have this going on in my life? Right?
Yeah, and I think too, the cross you can wear around your neck, you can put it on your wall. Sometimes if you haven't kind of personally sat with like what the cross is for you, even like the symbol of the cross, sometimes it loses its meaning, that it becomes something like jewelry, like something that looks nice, but when you read the gospel from Jesus, he's saying, pick up your cross and follow me. And like, what is he talking about? Like, what is he saying? Pick up your cross and follow me.
And he's the only person in the entire world that's ever said that. Right? Some guru, like I said in the homily, some guru will say, I had the enlightenment. I can tell you what you need to do. Or some great philosophers, I have the perfect words. Or this teaching, then
Mhm.
you can have fulfillment in your life. No, but that's not what Jesus says. What did Jesus say? He says, of me, if you love me. And it's so powerful because that's the whole key right there. And that's why he's saying, unless you hate your mother and father, brother and sister, hate power, health, hate wealth, whatever it is, there's nothing, absolutely nothing in this world that can come first. No family bonds, no nothing. Love for Jesus has to be number one. We've talked about that in marriage prep. One of the things that I tell people in marriage prep is it's Jesus first, God first, then your spouse, then your children, then everybody else.
Mhm.
You know, I had a lady tell me, she said to me, she said, I can't love Jesus more than my daughter. I can't, I try, Father, but I can't love Jesus more than my children. That's a problem.
Yeah, and I think with that too is the challenge of like, do we have a personal relationship with Jesus?
Right. And
You know,
people don't know what
because
that is.
if it stays distant, if it stays like a nice idea, kind of like a nice philosophy where I follow the rules, it's not about following the rules; it's about following a person. And I think it's really a challenge to look at, do I know Jesus like as a person? And I think that's the beautiful part. Pope Benedict has a quote that talks about that we don't follow rules or a philosophy, but it's the person of Jesus.
Right.
And it's a challenge and to be able to, do we know him enough to put him as number one and not, a priority amongst many, but like the priority of our life, and to really know that he comes before all. And it's a challenge because all these, you even mentioned like all these other these sacred relationships and friendships that we have with family, like they're good and they're beautiful, but insofar as they lead us towards God. And that's a challenge. But I think it's a great challenge to be able to know that, okay, if that rubs us the wrong way, then there's a more that we haven't experienced. There's an invitation to really know Jesus in a way that reorients the rest of our life, even our relationships.
Exactly right. It reorients it puts in the proper order our loves.
Yeah.
Right. So if I place Christ first above everything else, then of course all my other relationships are going to go well.
Mhm.
You're going to find beauty in the way you love your mother, in the way that you love your spouse, in the way that you treat your neighbor, in the way that you're with your colleague. Why? Because I will sacrifice for this person who drives me crazy, who is on my last nerve. I will do that. Why? Because I love you, Jesus. And I do it for you, Jesus, not for this person that's driving me crazy,
Mm.
but it begins to reorient. And I know what my conduct needs to, what my conduct needs to be because of the relationship that I have with Christ.
Yeah, and it makes everything then matter. I think of this story that I heard by a talk once, and they were talking about how this lady was so excited that she just got a new job, and they're like, "Well, what's your job?" And she said that she's opening mail, and they're like, "Okay, like why is your job so important?" And then she's like, "Oh, it's because it's for the president of the United States." And it's like, okay, like that's why your job is so important. But it kind of points to us and like everything we do and all these relationships have such a meaning because of Jesus. And if it's rightly ordered, then everything we do matters and every relationship matters, but it's all in order to get us to Jesus, to heaven. And it gives us a freedom, I think, to enjoy the gifts that we're given and to not cling to them in a way that if we lose them, we're destroyed, but to be able to see life as gift and God's generosity through relationships when they come and they go, and life and all of its ups and downs.
I think that that's what the new evangelization is. A lot of people don't understand what the new evangelization is. And I think even a lot of priests don't understand what the new evangelization is. A lot of people think that the new evangelization is going out to the supermarkets or going out to different places and bringing people, convincing them to come into church. Yeah, there's an aspect of that. But the new evangelization is really, truly targeting the people who are in the pews.
Mm.
These are the lukewarm Catholics who, beautiful, they come to Mass on Sundays, if they come to Mass on Sunday. But the new evangelization is to be able to go into the people in the pews, and exactly what you were saying is, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? And a lot of people will say, I don't even know what that means.
Mm.
Especially like my mother's generation. Like if you say that, they're like, I don't really understand what that means. And so one of the things that I tried to talk about in my homily this weekend is that lukewarm faith, where I love you, Jesus, from a distance. And I love everything about religion. I love going to Mass and it looks beautiful. But I still have these views that are not really in line with what the church is teaching, or I really am not going to sacrifice or commit too much because that's too demanding. And I like comfort, right? And what does Christ say? I didn't come here to give you comfort, right? And so,
But to give you greatness.
right, I
What
came to give you greatness.
Pope Benedict has a quote that you're not made for comfort, but you're made for greatness.
Right.
And that greatness is actually what you're seeking in the comfort to be fully alive. But it's
Fully
not
alive.
through comfort. It's through picking up your cross and following Christ. I want to hit on the lukewarmness that you mentioned, Father, if that's okay, where you were mentioning in your homily, lukewarm faith wants blessings without surrender. Could you maybe share a little bit more about what you were talking about with that lukewarmness likes the comfort without like the surrender of life?
Right. And one of the things that came to my mind when I was writing this was that it's faith without urgency. Right. I have all the time in the world. I'll get to it when I get to it. I don't really have to go to confession. There's other things that are more important. Not that they're more important, but that they're more appealing, more attractive. And so the world takes a hold of you and saying, look at all that I have for you. Right. And one of the things that I've always tried to drive home is if you're not structured, if you don't have discipline in your life, if you're not waking up in the morning when you don't feel like waking up and doing that morning prayer, doing that morning ritual, or that morning hello with Jesus that I like to say, then you got to look at the priorities in your life. Because there needs to be that urgency in, I want to save my soul. I want communion with the Lord. See, here's one of the things that I tell people, like, especially in confession, is that the Lord can't give you everything he wants to give you because you're not there. You're not open. You're not willing to commit fully. And so if you're standing on the sideline saying, oh yeah, it looks good, and I'll get there. And that's good because a lot of people get to Jesus at different, but they're in motion moving forward and not just stuck on the sideline, right? So what I meant by that was this real need for an urgency in the faith. Like today, right now, how can I be one with God? If I haven't been to confession, why not? Let me be in the state of grace. Let me allow that sacrament to really help me, because what happens is when you go to confession is, I don't want to fall out of grace. I don't want to be ugly to this person, or I don't want to fall into this mortal sin because I don't want to get out of the state of grace.
Yeah, it goes with our first podcast we were talking about striving was like a huge topic. Is like there's such a difference between kind of being complacent versus striving. And that's a huge difference to be like, okay, at least I'm striving and moving in a direction towards seeking faith, towards seeking prayer, towards trying to say like, I want this personal relationship with you, Jesus. Than being on the sideline being like, okay, I'm only going to take what's nice or what's easy or what's kind of dealt to me. And yeah, we kind of do it to ourselves to have a boring faith. Ultimately, that's what happens, boring, complacent faith.
The thing is, and people ask me, they'll say, well, how do I heal that lukewarmness? And I think the answer is return to the cross.
Yeah.
Fix your eyes on the cross and really understand, well, what does that mean? And for someone that may mean a diagnosis, an illness, it may be a very difficult spouse. It may be just an adult child that you're struggling with, whatever it is, whatever cross you're dealing with. If you understand that it's not just suffering for suffering's sake, and that suffering is redemptive, that there's something about suffering that really is the way, the gateway into heaven. Well, then if you start to understand that, then all of a sudden you're more committed. All of a sudden you're surrendering more. All of a sudden you're really, really drawing closer to the Lord. That's what I mean by that heals lukewarmness, because now you're engaged. You have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And you're going to the foot of the cross and saying, I can't do this without you. I need you. I want you. Look, this week, I'll tell you, this past week, I was helping this young man who was going through some medical issues, and it looked like really bad issues. We're talking something really bad, and he had to wait 2 weeks for some of these results to come back. And in those 2 weeks, he went through all of this scale of up and down and anger and bitterness. But what was so beautiful when we sat and talked was at the end of that was this acceptance of the cross, of saying, Lord, whatever it is, it is. And I probably, when I get the final result, I'll probably go back through this whole up and down again. But what happened at the end of those 2 weeks was this acceptance of surrender to say, I want to do this with you.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of disappointment. Like, I have so much to give still. I want to be around. I want to be around for my kids. But the surrender in it was, I trust in you and I don't want to do this alone. And whatever it is, but I have now embraced my cross.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, I don't remember what mass it was. I don't know if it was a noon mass or at the 5 p.m. mass, but I got choked up when I started talking, because I said to the people, I said, as your pastor right now, then it just floods my mind of all of our parishioners that are going through some really difficult moments right now, that I wanted to say, I didn't. I said, you think you have problems. Let me just share with you a couple, like some examples of some of our own people who are in this community who are in severe pain. And I was thinking about that, and I got choked up because every single one of them has embraced their cross and has taught me something about faith, about growth, about loving unconditional trust to the Lord. And that's the heart of what we're talking about. What's the cost of discipleship?
Mhm.
The cross is there, and that's what Jesus was talking about. It's very easy to follow Jesus when everything is great, when everything is easy. Just won the lottery. I got everything. Did anybody win those $1.7 billion? You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
easy when life is great and everything's falling into place. But when you're faced with some very serious issues, the, the question is, do you get angry? And but do you walk away from him? Say, I don't want to deal with this. I don't. How do we embrace that cross?
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is so powerful, because it's not following Jesus only when it's easy and comfortable, but it's knowing that embracing our crosses when they come to us is part of the Christian life, and it's a beautiful part of the Christian life, not something to be afraid of, but something to know that we all have crosses. Like, no one can get out of it. Like, it's just part of the human experience that there's difficulties and sufferings. But when those moments come, that we have a choice to make. And Jesus is being, I think this is so crucial, because Jesus is being so clear about take up your cross and follow me. So when crosses come, what to do is actually to embrace them with radical trust.
Yeah.
That they will not destroy us. They won't bring anything but new life if we bear the cross with Christ. And that changes everything, because then you can live with this total freedom of what comes and goes in my life. Like, God is in control, and his providential care is allowing me to embrace the ones that come, and that I can actually become a saint through them.
Right.
I think that perspective shift is radically different. And actually, we talked about this gospel. I got a chance to visit the women's prison on Saturday, and this was the gospel that we were talking about. And so it was so powerful, because these women are, from their different choices and circumstances, are in prison, but they have found Christ and are seeking after him now. And so this whole thing, because we were talking about, like, okay, what is a cross in your life right now? And they all thought about the different crosses, and a lot of them are thinking about, being in their situation in prison. And it was coming to this deeper sense of, like, embrace the cross that comes to mind, embrace it, and know that God and his providential love is only going to use it to bring you to him. Like, that the cross is not an obstacle to knowing God, to knowing Christ, to having a life that's abundant, but it's actually through the cross that we receive new life.
How many understand that, though? When you deal with these women in prison, like, how many understand that?
I mean, everyone is in a different place, but it's incredible to see this renewed sense of freedom.
Because real pain pushes you, right?
Yeah.
To confront it more, right?
Absolutely. And this is the way in which they can experience life in the midst of being behind bars is Christ, is knowing that he's not bound by their bars, is like the new life that he wants to bring to their hearts, to their experience, is like he's the only one that can do it. And so I think for them, I've seen incredible growth, but also I think just this perspective shift of like, even actually is from a comment that you made in your homily, like even in the midst of hell, like St. Maximilian Kolbe, right? Even in the midst of being in a concentration camp, even in the midst of like a real experience of hell, like God was alive
Yeah.
and moving if we let him do his thing. And I think for these women, that's a real experience, a real challenge that continues to, you know, be wrestled with, but a real experience of that it's through my cross that new life will come when I follow Christ and put him first.
I think it's engagement too on the, now I'm talking to the people that are in the pews. It's that decision of making a commitment to be more serious about your faith life and having a good self-awareness of what's going on in your life and what is that cross and what is the suffering. And because I really believe that lukewarmness is broken not by feelings but by choices.
Mm.
And
And I think evaluating your cross is actually like a good thing. Cause I think people just move through their
exactly
life
right.
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this
Exactly
happened. I
right.
can't believe this is happening. And they just like move through suffering. And I think it relates to the gospel, you know, after Jesus talks about this, talks about like the king making a plan for war. And he talks about the guy that's constructing a building. And it's always interested me to be like, what's he talking about? But he's talking about the planning, being able to look at, I think, even our suffering and pain, like look at it with the eyes of faith and then make a decision of the direction ahead with trust. Because otherwise you just kind of get moved by your emotions and by the, you know, the flow of life. But this intentional call of Jesus to pick up our crosses, like you were saying, it's a choice, it's an embrace. Like you have to collaborate with God to be able to embrace it and move in a direction that you choose, to despair or to him, to new life.
That's why I think that the story of, and I like using stories, but I don't always do stories. And I think that's why the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe worked,
It was powerful.
right?
It was very powerful.
And I think it moved a lot of people because I think in their mind's eye, they can see it being played out and they know a lot. You may not know the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe, but you know the horrors of Auschwitz and what the Jewish people and a lot of other people. There were priests that were killed in Auschwitz. I've been there a couple times. There's a whole wall where they have pictures of priests who were who died in Auschwitz. Um, so I think that a lot of people were able to see their particular cross in the story, in the sense that they understood that everything that he went through, that towards that end, was his cross and how he glorified Christ by embracing that cross. Because he could have been in that starvation bunker and like all the other men before him, where it was cursing and screaming and wailing. And, but what did he do? He turned it into, okay, guys, we're going to do prayers. We're going to sing songs. We're going to do the hymns. We're going to do a rosary around the clock. We're going to invite Jesus to be in this starvation bunker with us. How powerful. And I think that why people thought that the story was so real in their life, because they were able to say, okay, my struggle, my difficulty, I'm inviting Christ to be in that starvation bunker with me. And one of the things that I said, and I talked to a young person at Mass yesterday, which is important too, is that a lot of young people may not have a cross. Yeah. They do. Maybe it's hidden or it's nothing remarkable, but they're saying, I don't have those struggles that Father's talking about in his homily. And I say to them, count your blessings. And this is a time in your life where you need to build that strong foundation, where you're building your house on stone, because there will be days when that storm comes, but you already built a strong foundation. Because if you haven't built that strong foundation, that storm or that cross comes and you fall apart.
Yeah.
You don't have that relationship with the Lord, or you blame God, or you walk away, and then more conflict and more problems arise in your life as you're trying to deal with this other cross.
Yeah, and it's such an invitation to realize that, in different seasons of our life, there's different sufferings. And sometimes, like you were saying with young people, there's not these big things that they can name
Right.
or, but it is a time to really grow and build a strong foundation so that those storms are not felt as severely as they might be later in life if you don't have a strong foundation built. So important. So good. Um, okay, so as we're kind of wrapping up soon, Father, I wanted to mention you talked a lot about some of the modern day crosses that parishioners and people carry. And I thought it was, you were really bringing the message home and recognizing that we all have particular crosses and that you, as a priest, you see so many different experiences, human experiences of suffering and of crosses. Um,
Which
what,
is beautiful. I teach at the seminary. I'm an adjunct teacher for the new evangelization, and we talk about confessions. We talk about different models of evangelization and how do you bring people to have this experience of Christ and a conversion or a real tangible relationship with the Lord. And one of the things that we talk about is that a lot of people are in different places in their lives, right? And so you have to, when you're talking with people, see where they're at and be able to talk with them and help them through these different difficult moments. In our parish, there are lots of people with different, very strong problems. In my office, that's all I hear is problems. I would love to hear, I just won the lottery. I just did this or what, which is great. People, we maybe in
yes, they
social
trust you.
gatherings, people talk about that. But
Yeah.
mostly when you make an appointment to see a priest is because you're going through a difficulty.
Mm.
So it's, my daughter wants to have an abortion. I want to divorce my spouse. My kid did this, or my child has this illness, or can you help me pray for this? So it's dealing with everyday issues and problems, and then you come to want to walk with them as well.
Mm.
And so you carry them in your heart and you carry them in the prayer. I have a list that I have in my breviary that of some of our parishioners who are going through some very serious problems right now. And so I have them and I am praying for them every single day.
Mm.
Every day, because it hurts me that they're suffering so much and they're going through this pain. Again, this cross that they have in their life. Um, but that's the role of a priest. And one of the things that I do is I like to walk around the University of Miami every night. And if anybody's driving by and sees me talking out loud, it's like, okay, there's Father Vigoa talking to Jesus, because I have to do that. I have to, during the day, all the stuff that I have carried, I have to release it and give it to the Lord. And it took me a long time to do that because sometimes I wouldn't even be able to sleep at night because I would still be carrying the pain of someone who was just in my office crying or going through a difficult moment. But through this process of trusting in the Lord and saying, these are your children, Lord. I am not Jesus. I am not the Messiah. I am the one. I hope to be an instrument of grace in their life, but I need to give it to you because I need to be able to get up tomorrow and help someone else.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll check on you. I want to know your updates. I want to be there. I want to walk with you. But I need to be in a place where I can help someone else. And that's where I give completely, turn it over completely to the Lord.
Yeah, that's surrender. And
That's surrender.
praise God for the fatherly heart that you have to walk with our parishioners and with people in their great highs and lows. And maybe as we wrap up in this next minute or so, Father, what would be some particular tips on trying to embrace that cross in a way that becomes redemptive? So maybe a few tips on like someone that might be wrestling with the cost of this looks scary, like, but how do you embrace your own cross and begin to really trust?
I would say first understand what your cross is. A lot of people feel very frustrated, they feel overwhelmed and can't really pinpoint what that cross is.
Mm.
So the first step is, what is that cross? Right? Name it, claim it.
Mm.
And then bring it to the Lord. And in bringing it to the Lord and recognizing this cross, your relationship begins to develop in a stronger way, hopefully. But don't be afraid to struggle. Don't be afraid to be upset. Don't be afraid to be angry. Don't be afraid to be disappointed. Don't be afraid of any of that. As long as it's this communication that you're having with the Lord, it's this friendship, it's this relationship that is talk out loud and get it all out, because what he wants to do is say, get it out.
Mm.
I want to just put my arms on you and love on you. And then for us to be able then to fix our eyes on the cross and say, okay, Lord, I will love you. I'm not going to turn my back on you. I will trust you. Whatever it is, I will be faithful. I will be faithful. I haven't been many times. I have failed at being faithful, but I will try to be faithful. Why? Because I know that I have to love you above anything and everything else in the world. That was what Christ's saying. Love me. Who else says that? He's saying, love me. If you love me, I promise you, you will live with me for all eternity.
What a beautiful invitation. So we hope as we wrap up our podcast here, we hope that you've enjoyed our conversations for Heart of the Homily podcast and have perhaps received something new to bring into your week to really be challenged to grow in that personal relationship with Christ. And we encourage you, of course, to share it with anyone, family member or friend that might benefit from our conversation today. And thank you for listening. We also, of course, invite you to visit our website, staugustineschurch.org. Join us for Sunday Mass or any events. We'd love for you to be a part of our community. And we hope to see you next week. So thanks, Father.
Thanks, Michelle. God bless you.